Butterbeer.
Butterbeer.
Mm-hmm.
How about Billy Beer?
Also good. That crap ain't root beer. Can't be worse. Yeah, they got me last year. He says he went to England and ordered root beer.
Oh, okay.
They got him. Yeah.
Yeah, class dismissed, right?
Yeah, root beer is not root beer in England. Yeah. Terrible. Forget English beer. Man. You were trying to good spelling of lager and bear. What? I live near the Exorcist stairs. Good.
Hey, go Purple Birds.
Mm-hmm. In the boot. Man, Panda Chess Academy. You know what Panda Chess Academy is?
Yes.
I do. Okay, I didn't know if you know. Root beer sucks. You should all be ashamed.
Texas.
Yeah. Root beer in the U.S. tastes like Indian medicine. God damn. Mm-hmm.
Is it over? What did I miss? Says Mr. Pope.
The match is over.
That's all. That's all you missed.
Yeah.
The entire match is over.
Yeah.
Other than that, nothing.
Guaranteed Nepo was funny. Yeah, Dallas guaranteed they'd win against Washington. Yeah, come on.
Yeah, you can't beat the football team.
That's right.
Congratulations.
Oh, you're going to have a second baby? Good. Yay. Hey, I have a question from Quagmire. Is the baby that's not born yet, is she 18 yet? Who else but Quagmire?
Benser.
Yeah.
Thinking about naming her Benser.
That is a good name. You should. There's two names you could give her: Soda or Seven.
Right.
It's a good name for a boy or a girl. Either way is good. You know what I'm referencing?
That's Seinfeld.
Oh, okay.
I know that one. George's names.
Mm-hmm. All right, the match is over. 7.5, 3.5. The last 5 games, the last 6 games, Magnus got 4 wins. Yeah. But not the last 5 games. No.
So should I redo the marker?
No. Yeah. Okay, so this is Jan versus Magnus. Jan's white. $9.99, thank you. So Jan needs 3.5 out of 4 to keep the match going. Frankly, ridiculous. So E4 was played, confusing Caruana and Spencer. And frankly, Jan. Jan's like, I played that. This position, I quipped, maybe he'll play bishop c4, and he played it instantly after I said it. So it's probably cheating. Okay. And now, we knew that Magnus wouldn't play the 2 knights, so he played the 2 knights. And as you guys would call it, the fried liver, which I don't call it because I'm a vegan. And knight g5 d5 would be played, etc. Or maybe Magnus would play bishop c5, except for one thing. Okay, so he played d3, which all super GMs play. Bishop c5. Now, you can also play bishop e7 here. And as Spencer correctly pointed out, the reason to play this move order instead of the move order with bishop c5 is you avoid the Evans Gambit, which is unlikely, but at this match score, maybe again Midor paid him $1,000 to play it. I don't know. Probably need about 100,000 to play it. Okay, so we avoid the Evans Gambit, and we transpose into like a sort of a boring Italian. And both players played slightly unusual, just slightly. A5, not the most common move. Rook E1, not the most common move. Bishop A7, and then knight A3, definitely not the most common. And in this position, after knight A3, with the idea of knight C2 or knight B5, more flexible than knight here, Magnus relatively quickly played H6. And this position in the history of chess has been seen between like 0 and 2 times. And after H6, both players started thinking forever. So if they were in their prep, they're not anymore. And normally, Black's not playing A5 so early because that gives away the B5 square, which, sometimes white can use. But we shall see. So he played knight C2, deciding not to play here. Obviously, bishop B6. And he wants to trade the bishops, getting rid of this pressure here. And he wants his knight to go to D5 or F5, depending on how he feels. We'll see how he feels later. Castles, lots of arrows. Bishop E3. I thought Black would play A4 to play knight A5. That was what I was expecting. He took on E3. That's also possible. Now the knight got to where it wants to go. Normally, the knight would get there this way, but this is the same number of moves, so that's good. Not only is it the same number, it's, yeah. Okay, so here, Magnus decided if we're trading these bishops, then I want to trade these bishops. And then Jan said no talking. And then Magnus said, you can tell me what to do when you win a game. So I couldn't believe Magnus said that. Truth hurts. So he played rook e8. He wants to play bishop e6, a4, and he did play bishop e6. The engine says taking either way is correct, but if you play rook e8, you're not going to take with the f pawn because then your rook would want to be on f8. So I took with the rook. And white is slightly better because white possibly can go here and black can never go here. And white can go here now and black can't play knight f4. So white's a little better, but obviously symmetrical kind of position, trading all the bishops, etc. Queen b3. The engine literally didn't care about this move. They just play knight e7. If he takes it, we got pawns too. And instead he played b6, solid, consistent. So the question is, will anybody ever play d4, d5? And the answer is yes. Rook d1, that's what I thought he should do. Engine was looking at this, and I'm like, I don't know, trading more pieces? Come on. So he did play rook d1. Knight e7 was played. Magnus likes to play knight g6. Magnus likes to play d5. The rook is trapped, but she can't attack it. d5 winning. It's a little bit of cheating, but still, if you don't know the rules, then then white's winning. Well, then the rook could go here if you don't know the rules.
And en passant, too.
Yeah, en passant, right, exactly. So he played h3, put it in h. Now, the reason he played h3 was to trade more pieces off and make the game more drawn. I'm not a fan. And here I thought white was really trying hard to win. It's like, I got to win. One idea is to play d4. Obviously, your e-pawn isn't defended sufficiently. So the engine thought about knight f1 to g3, defending the e-pawn twice more with the rook and the knight, then play d4. But this idea, I thought he was going to play knight f1, knight here, and then his knights have all these squares. And instead, after rook g8, he just traded knights. Then they kept trading everything. So this knight here surprised me a little bit. And Karen, she was like, what? Okay, and then he took with the pawn to make it somewhat dissimilar. And now they just trade everything. And the move that trades the most, unfortunately, was played. d4. So both sides wanted to try to play d5 and d4, and they did. Now with correct play, there should be a wholesale trades here and the game's over. Okay, that's what should happen. In this position, the easiest way to draw is knight d5, rook d4, rook d6 draws, queen e8 draws. Takes. Now you might think, gotcha, bitch. I'm sure you were thinking that in the recap, right? Haha, you take this. But black's like, whatever. And then after the trade, it's just a dead draw. Check here. And everybody loses all their pawns and they agree to a draw. Every move is a draw. The engine says all moves are draws, even moves that are stupid. It's still a draw because nobody can win because we're just going to trade all the pawns off. That's one of the variations that could happen. Another variation that could happen is instead of rook d6, which we just looked at, queen e8. And then takes, queen check, queen takes, rook takes e4, queen takes, queen b1, queen here. And this pawn is too strong. So if black takes this or queens, he's winning, and white gets one of his perpetuals. Queen check and perpetuals. And there's a lot of queen endings like that where this pawn is too good and white's, and white's giving a perpetual. I broke everything. I do that like once every 6 months.
I've done that too.
I click something, I'm like, what's happening?
Yeah, that happens.
Right, yeah. Okay, so the game should be a draw by many ways. Instead, he took this, which is also a draw, but white's not better now. And not sure what he missed, but rook e4 is the only move, but it's good enough. Nothing wrong with it. And he played queen c2 attacking the rook. Now rook f4 is the only move, but it's good enough. If rook e4 didn't exist and rook f4 didn't exist, then Jan's playing for a win, but obviously Magnus already saw this. Right, and now the game should be a draw, but white's not better. White's like trying to draw now because these pawns are weak. He's got 3 pawns, 1 for each of you. Yeah. So now the engine says it's a draw, but it would prefer to have... Now the way to bail out to a draw is this way. This is the bailing out to a draw variation. And then draw agreed. B3 and dead draw. All zeros, everything. You can't take this pawn because the rook is hanging, and it's just a draw. That's how the game should have ended. Instead, he made one of the worst moves of the match. It's one of the 4 worst moves he's made. Maybe the worst. Maybe. He played G3. Probably the worst move of the match because it's equal, and now he can resign. Now, G3 is good if black doesn't win by force. If black moves his rook, then this move just wins a pawn for white. The rook isn't defending the pawn anymore. But we sacrifice the exchange. Always sacrifice the exchange. And white's completely lost. And Magnus's technique was suspicious here. King e2 loses because that's the worst king ever. Everything wins. This wins the quickest because you can't take it because of the skewer. And then, okay, your king is ridiculous here. This pawn's hanging. This pawn's hanging. Your king has no shelter. Every move wins. This wins the quickest because the engine said so. Threatening checkmate with advantage. Also threatening knight here check and rook here check and so forth. And the engine says here, which I didn't look at during the game, here, knight check, and okay, it resigns. Man, queen takes e4 is best. Tough engine.
Because knight takes rook is also a fork.
Yeah, right. Winning the rook too. Man, harsh. Winning and winning. So obviously king e2 is ridiculous. So he played king g1, and now Magnus failed miserably. The lesson is never fail. Every move wins for black, but he could have won the game immediately, and I could have done this recap an hour ago. Magnus could have played check. You can't take with the king because you lose your queen. So the only other legal move is this. And then rig d6 resigns. Now, Nepo in the press conference, which hasn't started yet, said, I wouldn't resign here. And Magnus said, you're a daisy if you don't. After this, resigns. The game would have ended here. Jan would have resigned. So I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what both players missed. Maybe they'll ask Magnus in the press conference, dude, why don't you take and go here? And he'll be like, yeah, you know what, I did one. Leave me alone. All right. So instead of winning that way, he played this way, which also wins. Now, the press conference hasn't started yet, but I predict Magnus will say, well, Ben says always play knight f5. So you can't really blame him. Now, if it was black's turn to move, which it's not, black would win with rook d6 to g6 or knight h4, threatening all kinds of checkmates. So d6 was played, which is an excellent move. It stops rook here forever. Queen g4 is good. Oh, he played knight h4. Queen g4 is better, but what Magnus did wins. Threatening mate, threatening mate. So you must take with f-pawn, check. If you play king here, I think knight f3 is immediately winning because we're threatening queen h3 checkmate, and we're threatening the rook. And the engine actually announces mate here. It says mate in 12 or 14 or something. So Jan didn't play that. Jan played king f1, which is correct. Knight f3, not the engine move. This goes into a winning endgame. And you can't take this because you're opening the d file. So now we go check and checkmate. Because the d file is, you can't play king d3. Okay, so he played queen f2. And in this position, queen g2, queen h3 exclam, former muscle. Now, white has to decide which losing endgame to go into. He played queen g2, okay? But if he plays king e2, and I play knight takes e1, then you have to play king takes e1. If you play this move, which looks like tricky, you're not threatening the queen on this square. So I'm always safe to take the rook, but I can play the intermezzo queen g4 check. And then white resigns. Resigning is the best move. If you go here, I have 2 mates in one for each of you. If you block with the queen, I take it and my knight defends my queen, which is funny. And if you play king f1, I take this and my queen is defending c8. So after knight takes, you have to take with the king, and we go into this queen and pawn ending, and they got the same ending but with rooks. The queen and pawn ending, this king's not very sheltered, this king is sheltered, and that's a passed h pawn. So both endings are winning for black, and Jan thought it was better to play the rook ending. I agree. So they played the rook ending. This is also winning for black. Black's up a pawn, these pawns are weak, and this is a passed h pawn. Put it in h. And then he took. If you play c takes, rook here wins a pawn. You can win my c pawn, but I win both of your pawns, or I just win this for free. So he took with the rook. Rook a2. If you play rook c4, c5, and your rook's not very good. It's good, but not very good. So he played king e4. He's going to get counterplay, which he did. And then h5. Let me get back to this. Okay, h5. He's got a passed pawn, one for each of them. King d5, rook c2. Every move wins for black. This is fine. h4 also wins. The winning plan for black is very simple. h2, the rook stops the pawn, and then black plays f6, g5, and has another pawn. That's the winning plan. Impossible to stop.
Thank you, Pony Labyrinth.
Okay. So in this position, Magnus won the game in what the engines thought was the worst possible way, but it does win. So, you know. Now, the way that we like, especially Spencer, is after here, threatening rook g1. So you got to play rook h1. Then here. We like that way. And then we're going to play this. And the king, there's not much counterplay. That's the way we like. The other way to win is to just do nothing and just play f6, g5 right now. And then g4, g3 resigns. These lines all win. And what Magnus did also wins, but just not as winning according to us, but maybe we're wrong. Okay, and he played rook takes check and, you know, giving white this counterplay, but Magnus wanted to be up a queen. Prima donna. Okay, so you have to take and queen. And this looks dangerous, like white has counterplay, but Magnus quickly played the next few moves, so he had figured it all out when he did this. Obviously, we tried a queen. Magnus played queen e4, exclam, threatening queen e6 check, winning the rook. And if your rook moves sideways, I'm probably going to win your rook. If it moves vertically, I'm going to take all your pawns with check. So not good. So he played king a7, avoiding queen here check. Now he can block checks with his rook, and when he pushes his pawn, it's protected. Queen check. He can't play king b6 because queen here check. So he played king a8. He wants to push his pawn. And now exclam king g7. That way we can check on the back rank if we want, and we don't get our queen pinned. And the problem with white's position is white wants to do this, because that's the counterplay. If you go here, I attack your rook and your pawn. This isn't stalemate, because there's these two pawns here. And if you play rook a3, the only move to save both, then I win your rook, check. King goes either square, and then I win your rook. So he can't play a6. But, you know, you want to play a6. If you don't play a6, a7, there's no counterplay. So he played here, so he could play a6, a7. Very reasonable. And Magnus played queen c5 instead of taking this pawn, because we're threatening this, and it can't move because you lose your rook. If you lose this, it's over. So he has two choices here. He can resign, which is what he did, or he could play rook a6. Horrible. Now, I wanted to not move with black. I was like, I'll just go here, because these can't move. But everybody else wanted to play here because it wins all the pawns. All right. I guess winning all the pawns is good. You still can't move your pawn. So the engine's already announced mate. So after the move queen c5, white resigned. The match is over. Magnus wins 7.5, 3.5. And if I'm correct, I'm not saying I am, after 5 games, the score was 2.5, 2.5. Then it was 7.5, 3.5 the next week. The truth hurts. Yeah. So g3, an incredible blunder from Nepo. Nepo lost the first game that he lost in the match at 136 moves after both sides had winning chances and they got to a table-based draw. The other 3 games Nepo lost were 1-move blunders in drawn positions. Those positions, the engine said were drawn. Nepo made a move. Then the engine said Nepo resigns. So he lost to 3 1-move blunders in a span of 5 games. I asked Hikaru for comment. He said, frankly, terrible. And G3 was such a bad move here that the other analyst went insane. After G3 losing the game, several Super Grandmaster analysts who you thought I was crazier than said, oh, he's losing on purpose. Terrible. That's how bad G3 is. He's too good to play it. Okay, but it's not true. And for some reason, which I'll never understand, Magnus didn't play pawn takes, queen takes, rook d6, resigns. S resigns. What he did wins, but this ends the game now. White can't play on. That's too good. And we're still playing knight f5 and stuff in case there's some defense, which there isn't. And the key line, since this is checkmate, to not get checkmated, gets checkmated.
Queen f1.
I didn't see queen f1. But here, check, here, and then queen f3. Queen f1 I didn't see. That doesn't look good.
Right.
Yeah.
G6 still, I guess.
Yeah, it doesn't announce mate. It does walk the king up the board.
Right, you gotta
Yeah, it says you gotta walk up the board.
and then king e3 and such.
Yeah, you gotta walk up the board.
Should lose
Man,
that if
knight
you
f5. God damn.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, and then why is this bad? It looks good. Man, don't look too good.
No, this is
Then after
play
king here, we play here, and then the engine cries for white. This is like when I'm playing and my opponents run their king up the board because they're 700 rated. Yeah, Jan shouldn't have white here. Jan should have black here. Yeah. So G3 was an incredible blunder in this position because it loses immediately to this. And even if you don't see that black is winning, black has many ways to win. He's acquiescing to a perpetual. So he's like, maybe you win, maybe you draw, let's see what happens. The G3 was nonsensical when you could draw the game immediately. Right? This isn't hard to see. I mean, this is an immediate draw. You just trade everything. And then draw agreed. So why you would go for that other position where you're going to lose or draw, turns out lose, instead of the dead draw is very strange. And I'm sure in the press conference they're asking him about it, and he's probably like, leave me alone, I lost the game, stop it. But yeah, G3 is for a world championship is an incredible blunder because it goes from equal to dead lost, resigns. So like if a supercomputer is playing another one and G3 was played, they would have to stop the match and check out the hardware and somebody fooled with it. Yeah. So unbelievable blunder, confusing Magnus. 3 1-move blunders in a span of 5 games. Like equal position, I make a move and I'm dead lost. The truth hurts. Magnus retains his title, 4 wins, 7 draws, Papa John's. Hope you enjoyed our coverage. The more you donate, the more you like our coverage. I'm still on the road to 2,800, so you'll be seeing those, but won't have to wake up at 6 in the morning anymore. Karen will wake up at 6 in the morning because she likes to, but we're not going to do that. Spencer's going to go to sleep at 6 in the morning after a 12-hour video game session.
That's right.
He's like, yeah, I agree with that.
Accurate.
Yeah. So Magnus retains the title. The Rapid and Blitz World Championship, which heretofore was going to be in Kazakhstan at the end of the year, yesterday they canceled it because Kazakhstan has some COVID rules that didn't work out. And they've already got a new site that's going to be in Poland. December 25th to 31st will be the World Blitz and Rapid. I'm sure they're telling the players that now. The players are like, what? What's happening? I'm trying to play a world championship here. Congrats to Magnus. He wins 1.2 million. Nepo wins a paltry 800,000. And his texts to the Russian OnlyFans woman are being blocked now. So, truth hurts. Yep. All right. See you later when I do my road to 2,800. And I'll see you in a couple of years for the next world championship match.
See you.
Go, everybody, but mainly Magnus.